You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Right, so I've got some of your messages that you have sent on the first issue that we discussed, but I'll be sharing them with the rest of the world very soon. I need to state once again that there's an initial report that many of us have seen, so any suggestion that there is no preliminary reports can't be correct. Now, I'm joined in the studio by Mr. Seth Tekpe, is former Minister of Finance, and joining us via Zoom is John Kuma. Dr. John Kuma is Deputy Minister of Finance. Thank you for joining us, John. Hello, John.
Yeah, thank you, Samson.
Great. And good morning and welcome, sir.
Good morning.
Right.
Good morning to your viewers.
Right. Okay. So let's begin. Some of us, we don't have an appreciation of all of these credit ratings and what they really mean for the economy. And the Ministry of Finance has been very unhappy about what Bloomberg, reported, and also what Fitch has done as to the ratings. So give us, some brief, simple understanding. What are we in for because of these ratings?
Yeah, thank you very much. The question is, what is the essence of the ratings? Mm-hmm. And to simplify, let me limit to two. There are about three which definitely affects us. The first one is the sovereign, that is Ghana itself. And the ratings for Fitch is A, B, and then it goes down. Like your scorecard, school scorecard or something, yeah. Mm. So, and then within the B, they have B positive, B negative. It's like getting B minus in your class, or it has a different connotation than B, just straight B, and so the lower you come, it means the less credible, if I may use it, you are in going to the financial markets. I'll come and explain that. To borrow. Okay. Now, so apart from the sovereign being rated, when we go to do a sovereign bond or borrow through the bond mechanism, which many people know as a sovereign bond, you go to New York Stock Exchange, London Stock Exchange. The our stock exchange is small, but we do some of the trading also on the Ghana Stock Exchange. We started that, I believe, in 2014 or so. The bond itself is rated, and it's linked to the country's rating. So what does the rating mean? The rating means you have borrowed in the past. Are you capable of paying that loan you borrowed? Then it comes to, if you are having difficulty paying the interest and principal on the loan that you borrowed, the question arises, how confident are we, that when you borrow this time, it will not worsen the situation, you'll be able to pay, right? So these are the questions. Now,
on about 5 occasions, this country has been rated by Fitch with a B.
Yeah, we've always been B.
Right.
Yes.
So this is the first time since 2003, as we understand, that this country has been rated B minus.
No, we have had B minus before, but it's either B plus B minus positive, which means that even though you are low, there is optimism, based on measures that you have taken, that you will get out of your current situation. So to give you a typical example, when we started putting money into the sinking fund, because of the pressure of single spine and other, issues that was confronting us, Doomsaw and others, the ratings dropped. There is this typical of social media, you see the chart showing the precedents and, yeah. So it did drop, but then we started putting money because what the markets were concerned with is we were coming to borrow at the time. I'm giving a specific example. And they are seeing that by 2017, the bond that was issued under former President Kufuor would mature in 2017. So if it matures in 2017 and you are in the market 2014, 2015, with 2 or 3 years to go, and you are going to add to that debt, and you have not been paying principal, right? What is the assurance that when we give you the money, you'll be able to pay, add, let's say, another billion to 750 billion, 1.7 billion? You don't have a mechanism for paying down. So are you able to refinance? Are you able to convince the market that, yes, I don't have 750, but you permit me to reschedule it? Okay. We realized that wasn't going to work. This is the rationale for the sinking fund. So immediately we established a sinking fund, and they realized, that we had actually gone to the market, the secondary market, and bought down our bonds up to about 330 million, with 200 to go, and we had refinanced 250 already. They realized that we had a plan. So immediately, it didn't go down further to negative, but it started to stabilize around positive.
So the Bloomberg report said that, the country was facing a grave financial challenge.
Yeah.
Because investors were becoming impatient. It said, among other things, that our dollar bonds have slumped 10% in 10 days, moving deeper into distress territory.
Yes.
As investors judge that refinancing debts in the Eurobond market won't be an option when the Federal Reserve hikes rates and budget targets remain elusive. They spoke about they said the extra premium demanded on Ghana's sovereign dollar debt jumped on Wednesday to an average of 1,105 basis points from 683 basis points in September. What do all of this mean?
Well, Bloomberg, Moody's, and Moody's will come. Standard & Poor's will come. These are the three globally who are known and who use these global factors. For example, because inflation is high in the US and it's increasing in Europe, the central bank, just our central bank, normally they talk about inflation a lot, and then they base that on the rate which Bank of Ghana, the base rate which Bank of Ghana charges banks. It either raises it to lower inflation, or lowers it when inflation is going down. That is what's at play. But we are in those international markets to borrow. So Bloomberg is warning us that apart from the difficulty you have now, we know by now that we are using all our tax revenue basically to pay compensation and the interest on previous loans. What this means is that even the loan we borrowed previously, we are borrowing to refinance. So Bloomberg is saying if you are coming from this situation and then you are coming to the market to refinance, some of the old loans, right, then you are having difficulty because remember, we did not go to the market for the extra 2 billion, last year. Okay. We were supposed to borrow 5 billion because our situation was deteriorating, and it's time for correction, but that's the way the markets interpret it. They think that because you are having difficulty borrowing, a good example is the zero coupon bond that we did. It was described as innovative and the rest, but the cost was expensive. For 500 million, which we were to receive, we received only 350 million approximately upfront, which means that we gave away 150 million. If you do a simple average, it means the interest Ghana was paying was about between 30 to 40%, depending on whether you are expressing it on the 350 or on the 550. So they are looking at this situation in which our budget is very tight, very, very tight. We are borrowing to service current loans, and therefore they are saying, is this bond? Bond is your loan is broken into pieces. and then it's sold. And the price is the interest rate that you pay. So people holding, when they say people are, people holding it, either would demand a higher price, right, when you come to the market, because it's risky, it's become risky. Or they will just shed it. And once they shed it, it means that everybody says there's a problem with this bond. And that is the days that they were, within a matter of weeks, we had all these slippages, that we had.
The finance minister met the press, and among other things, he said that the budget, the 2022 budget that he has presented, enables us to stabilize the economy and address the greatest challenges of our time. And that is the triple helix of debts, digital and fiscal infrastructure deficit, especially roads, and unemployment. Then he proceeds to give us an understanding of the fact that the current expenditure pattern, he says, is motivated by government's unwavering commitment to the sovereign rights of the people of Ghana to social justice and social mobility. Between 2017 and 2021, key expenditures have been education, approximately 50 billion Ghana cedis, health, approximately 20 billion Ghana cedis, security, approximately 20 billion, excluding national security. Other flagships or programs, he says, about 15 billion Ghana cedis. And of course, there is the Agenda 111 hospitals. If you look at all of this, he says they are still doing everything to keep, the ship stable. Would you agree with those who say the economy is heading to collapse? Like Professor Bokwin, who, was very straightforward in that kind of...
Not if we do not take remedial measures. Not if we do not take remedial measures. We are gradually going, and we have gone HIPIC before, right? So HIPIC is a good example for us, that if your borrowing becomes unsustainable. You see, the key word is sovereign rights, which we are also exercising in not going to the IMF, right? And we can discuss that later. Yes, you have your sovereign right, okay, but you are not able to finance your budget. So what is that sovereign right? And remember, it's your sovereign, as I explained, which is being rated. And you are in the markets. And the markets are losing confidence in the words that you are telling them. And they are saying, the IMF says, you are saying your loan is 77 or 79 or whatever. The IMF is saying it's 83 or 81 or 82. Fitch is saying it's 83. And that is because they are rejecting your method of excluding bailout costs and those things in calculating that, because all those are pressures for your borrowing. Now, yes, you have your sovereign right to do education. You have your sovereign right, to do all your government programs. But are you able to finance it yourself? And they are looking at your budget, which something I have here. By the time you are finished, your total revenue, even as projected, at 100 billion, which is supposed to increase by about 20 billion, which is significant, right? But we'll put that aside. By the time you have paid compensation, 64, and you have paid interest, you start borrowing. That's the red you see here. So, and much of what you are talking about, your sovereign right to do education, is in goods and services, right? Much of education is in goods and services. Education infrastructure, the roads you want to build and the arrears, they are in capital expenditure. And then you have arrears. And then you have exceptional expenditures, banking sector, because you have included the revenue here, includes ESLA and the rest, which was meant to pay for those things. So all the things I have mentioned now, apart from the two, you are borrowing. Is your market able to give you the money you need? Your market is small, right? To the extent that even when you issue a domestic bond, right? When you issue a domestic bond, which we started vigorously under my former boss, Dr. Dufo, right? Much of it is patronized or is bought by the same people who are buying our sovereign bond. So when they see that your economy is strong, you are able to finance, they come and buy. At the moment, they are not coming. That's what we mean when we talk about the expression non-residents exiting our markets. So they started exiting. And it's in the budget. Government itself has stated. Right? So what is your sovereign right what is the point in asserting your sovereign right when you are not capable of borrowing and you are going to the same people you are saying, I have a sovereign right to come to you and borrow? Why weren't you able to borrow last year? The additional 2 billion. Right? And why haven't you? And in fact, if you look at the budget, the finances section, you will see that the rate at which we were borrowing government itself has lowered it. It's lower. So government is anticipating that it will have difficulty going to the external markets. So it is dependent. Now, when you come to the domestic market, Fitch is saying, wait a minute. Okay, how big is your domestic market? Right? Fine. Even if you are able to finance, it means that your private sector will be, what's the expression, crowded out. Because you are turning from the external market and coming to the domestic market. So it means you are not competing with your own firms, for credit on the domestic market. Your interest rate itself will go up domestically. And you have difficulty, as we had, and you have situations like Bank of Ghana coming in to give you 1.7 billion, more than even we got from the IMF. Yes, you can attribute it to COVID, but I always insist that the 2019 Article 4, right, 2019 Article 4, showed that we had a gap before COVID, right? My next point is, look, the market is not convinced about the methodologies that we are using. Offsets, as I said, bailout costs being put, in the bottom and the rest. But you see, they also have the right. You have your sovereign right, but they also have the right to say, we're also looking at your budget. And this is the way we are rating you. You see the point. And the markets, sorry, I'll just land. The markets are now looking more, those who are giving you the money, they are looking more at what Bloomberg is saying, what Fitch is saying, what Reuters is saying, and what IMF, World Bank, African Development Bank, who are all warning us that our debt is also sustainable.
Well, the Bloomberg report said that, quote, investors are questioning whether Ghana, the region's second biggest economy, can sustain its debt levels if a surge in borrowing cost shut it out of the international market. But the finance minister, in addressing us, takes us through a number of things they have had to do because of COVID. And of course, COVID has hit everybody. And he says that they have done a number of things to mitigate the impact of the COVID pandemic. Government, among others, did one, recruited additional 24,285 health professionals. It provided 3.6 million reusable face masks, 50,000 medical scrubs, 90,000 hospital gowns and head covers to health facilities as of June 2020. It rolled out the 750 million CAP bus program in May 2020 to directly support micro, small and medium-sized enterprises, to 302 SMEs, and to save 768,184 jobs. It provided cook meals to 2 million, almost 3 million vulnerable persons, and worked with faith-based organizations to distribute dry food packages to over 470,000 families. It supported households with electricity and customers in excess of, 477,512 customers, and water to about 10.2 million urban dwellers alone. Then lastly, it said it spent 1.9 billion to ensure that our children and teaching staff at all levels return to school safely and save the year, as they were able to sit for their BECA and WASSCE exams with historic results. Now, will you blame government for borrowing when it gives you these statistics?
Samson, the question facing us is a simple one. It is a financing issue. All these things that we have listed here, who financed it? How did we finance it? IMF, 1 billion, COVID loan. This year, COVID is continuing, SDR, 1 billion, same IMF, right? And we say we don't want to go to the IMF.
What's SDR?
The special drawing rights. Remember the 1 billion, which is our sovereign, appreciation of our position, the money we had at the IMF, which the IMF distributed to countries to cater for COVID and all that we are talking about, right? It's IMF, yes, that one is our money. But we included it in financing, right? If we get 1 billion, why are we not putting it in a major project, right? Our own money. Why are we not doing a major project which we can say we got this money, we are capable of financing COVID costs? Well, as I said, Bank of Ghana gave 1.7 billion US dollars, right? So counting 3.7 billion. World Bank gave us, 600 together with the African Development Bank and the rest, close to another billion. Development partners came to our aid, vaccines and other things, right? This is the only crisis where we have had close to 5 billion US dollars to tackle. And we still have a situation where we are having difficulty borrowing. What is the problem? Right. So the market is saying, it's simple. Yes, you did all this. It's good for your people. It's good for, But how did you finance it? You financed it through loans, which worsened your position on the market. And you are coming to borrow again. And we all know that you don't have money to even pay the past one. That's the budget. And I'm looking at the budget.
Okay, now let me go to Dr. John Kuma. And John, the minister says that restoring fiscal discipline and putting the public debt on a sustainable downward trajectory is a priority for government to achieve fiscal consolidation. How are you doing this in the face of this reality check that you have overborrowed, you are getting investors concerned, and all of this is going to worry? And I understand you are not too, as it were, excited that we'll be talking the way we do because it adds to the investor confidence in the economy.
Yes, Samson. Good morning to your listeners and viewers, and good morning to my senior, the Honorable Seth Pepe.
Good morning.
Yes, senior. To address the issues that the investor community have raised, I think the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta laid out clearly Ghana's position on some of the concerns that have been raised. And we sincerely believe that the concerns are being exaggerated, and that Ghana, in this particular instance, is being unfairly downgraded or targeted, especially if the basis of the downgrade or the concerns being raised is about, but as you read out to us. First of all, let us understand that this economy, recovering from COVID in the last year, has grown on the average of 5.2%. If you check the first quarter growth from 2021 was 3.3%, then we did 3.9%. In the third quarter, Ghana grew by 6.6%. So if you take the average of the 3 quarters, we don't have the fourth quarter yet. And we all know that fourth quarter, because of Christmas activities, tend to be the highest. But we did 6.6% in the third quarter. So with the 3 quarters in 2021, we are talking about an average of 5.2%. But the growth rate target for 2021 was 5%. So if you are doing 5.2%, it means you are doing well. Our budget deficit for last year, 2021, was 9.4%, which I think we did 9.5%, just slightly above it, and several other things. If you look at our revenue targets, GRA was given a target of 57 billion. They ended up collecting about 57.3 billion. So an economy that is growing about 5%, meeting its revenue targets and achieving even high, if you look at our bank reserves, which is about 4%, 4 months of import, above 4 months of import. I mean, at a point in 2021, we're doing even more than 5 months of import, and we are still above 4 months of import. So we don't see the basis for such an exaggerated concern, except to say that maybe it's because of the yield levy on pass in Parliament, and because of the nature of parliamentary strength, which is equal among two major parties, and so they are not sure about how our revenue targets, how the revenue targets are going to go in 2022. Otherwise, we don't see the very basis for the fears, which I think that is much exaggerated. Going forward, in 2022, the finance minister also pointed out that fiscal consolidation and trying to reduce our debt, which is of concern to them, we have indicated that we are going to do about 7.4% of deficit, which means we are slowing down our borrowing and checking out our expenditure as well. And then also we are seeking to do a lot of infrastructure and at the same time create jobs through the U-Start program. But when Honorable Sepepe was talking, he talked about the number of borrowing interventions that came in 2020. Talked about the BOG asset purchase financing support that came. He talked about the World Bank and our development partners. But that was a year where we had a shortfall of 11.6 billion in our revenues. We lost about 11.6 billion in our revenue target. And then we had an unbudgeted, unplanned expenditure, extra expenditure of about 13.6 billion. So when you put the two together, you are talking about 25.5 billion gap in our budget in one particular year due to COVID. So how was government going to address this problem? This is how all the interventions that came helped Ghana to address it. The World Bank loans, the IMF support, the Bank of Ghana support we took. It was all geared towards addressing the unexpected, the lawyers, you say force majeure situation of COVID that hit our economy. So it wasn't something like a wasteful expenditure or lack of good governance that resulted in that. And we can all understand that, yes, our debt has gone up because of the COVID. And not just Ghana. I mean, look at the COVID and its impact globally. There is no single country in this world today.
Yeah, but the question Mr. Tepe is asking is that who is financing these COVID interventions? He mentions the World Bank giving us, is it 100 million?
No, World Bank gave us about 600 million. African Development Bank gave us some money. IMF gave us the loan. And I didn't mention our own stabilization fund, which with 3 oil fields, we never increased.
Yeah, what do you say to that? So we are not directly responsible for financing this.
Yes, but in that difficult situation, everybody was looking elsewhere for support. It's not only Ghana. The IMF and the World Bank intervened in several countries to support them. And like I told you, if you're able to raise revenues, that is when you are able to spend. Unfortunately, we had a shortfall of about 11.6 billion revenue shortfall, and we needed to spend extra 13 billion on budgeted expenditure in that same year. So yes, it is true that the World Bank, other development partners came on board to support Ghana in the financing regime, and several other local financing sources that we used, including the Bank of Ghana and even the contingency fund. And you remember even the Fiscal Responsibility Act had to be suspended until 2025, if you remember, so that Ghana could go beyond the limit of 5% fiscal deficit as required by law. So this was an exceptional situation. And we are saying that for Ghana to be judged or to be assessed based on COVID year and the difficulties it brought on our economy, and in spite of all that we have achieved subsequently to that, okay, because in 2021, all the target we set, we were able to grow. Even when we set a target of growth of 5% and said we'll raise 57 billion in 2021, the same market doubted us, but we achieved it, okay? And we even gone beyond the targets that we set for ourselves as a country. Today, we are talking about 2022, where we have set another target to do more. And yet they are saying it's overambitious, we cannot achieve it, and raising all kinds of doubt. But we believe in our capacity to deliver in this country. Yes, there are issues about e-levy because at the moment, even though the Parliamentary Finance Committee has approved and recommended for approval, because Parliament of the whole has not approved, it looks like a delayed revenue measure. And so it may have impact on the collections and the volumes we have stated in the budget. But government has immediately reacted and announced that we are going to have about 20% cut in expenditure in the first quarter, so that we don't want to exceed our deficit target. We don't want to spend what we do not have. And so even though we are seeking to do 20% cut in our expenditure, it is still going to be earmarked to the performance of the revenue, so that if we are still able to achieve our revenue target, then we will spend. If we are not able to achieve our revenue target, we are going to cut our expenditures by 20%. So we have demonstrated commitment.
Fitch said that, in their view, Ghana's ability to deliver on planned fiscal consolidation efforts could be hindered by the heavier reliance on domestic debt issuance with higher interest costs in the context of an already exceptionally high interest expenditure to revenue ratio.
Samson, that's where we disagree with Fitch and Bloomberg and some of these rating agencies. It appears that if Ghana says we are not going to the international market, then we don't have an alternative to finance our expenditures in this country. But this is not the first time Ghana has not gone on the market. You see, in 2017, Ghana didn't go on the market, and yet we met our expenditure targets and revenues. In 2022, government is looking more within to raise the financing, because the good news for Ghana was that last year, the IMF gave Ghana the SDR of 1 billion, the special drawing right. And we spent 250 million of that in last year's budget. We still have 750 million, or about $700 million sitting in Ghana already. So we don't have to go out there in the market to borrow. And we have factored that. And all the external financing that we are looking at is just about $750 million for us to be able to achieve the expenditure targets for 2022. And we think that we have enough capacity within our domestic market to be able to raise enough financing to achieve the budget targets. They have their doubts, but 1 year is not far away. Just like they doubted us in 2021, we delivered. And I believe that if this is the basis of concern, for them to be rating us at the levels that they are doing, we are very, very surprised, because an economy that is growing about 5% in COVID and meeting its revenue target cannot be said to be having a negative outlook. You get it? So, yes, but we are all entitled to disagree. And I want to assure the country that irrespective of other people's confidence in us, we have strong confidence in our ability to deliver the best for our country and manage the economic affairs of Ghana in the best of means possible. And all the targets we have set for 2022 shall be met by the grace of God. Just
now,
like we set it for 2021.
People are facing the stark reality of the unprecedented borrowing that you have been involved in, and yet you issue a statement and tell them that in spite of whatever, we do not face any imminent external imbalances. And we have these rating agencies that you have always placed a lot of hope and trust in them. Suddenly, you have issues with them. How do we reconcile that?
Samson, we are saying that we expected them to appreciate that in those countries where they even are, they have seen that there's no singular country. Look, in the U.S., apart from the $1.9 trillion when Biden came initially, they created to shore up the economy. Recently, they have put across another $3 trillion for infrastructure. Every country is adding on to their debt. And they know that's the reality of how you rebuild out of COVID. Okay? So we are not saying, yes, we haven't borrowed. There's no country, even the West African regional average of debt was 35% before COVID. Today, we are talking about 65% of West Africa debt to GDP, regional average. So these are the difficult realities that, yes, the world has gone through some hardship, okay? And so if we have shown that in spite of those difficulties, we are slowing down on our debt, we have shown, at least from the 2021 and 2022 performance and targets, that we are reducing our debt rate, and we have shown how we are going to create jobs for young people through the U-Start and expand the economy so that we can grow at targets that help us.
And you are hoping to do that. You are hoping to do that with e-levy, and the minister did announce that himself, you, and other key members of government, you were going to, embark on a public engagement and sensitization campaign across the country to communicate clearly the proposed mechanics of the e-levy and its potential benefits to the people within the spirit of burden sharing. That must guide all of us towards our development efforts to move Ghana beyond aid. He says you intend to use the money, create jobs and grow the private sector to employ more of the youth, accelerate the digitalization agenda to bring more convenience to Ghanaians, enhance the security of our digital platform, aggressively expand our road infrastructure agenda, reduce our dependence on debt, and reduce the crowding out of the private sector to improve access to credit. When you say this and you get yourselves ready, all of you, to go out and begin to talk to people about this, is this not what you should rather be doing to the MPs, the minority members of parliament, because it is not sure what is going to happen again?
Yes, Samson, you have a good point, and that's what we've done all this vacation. We've talked to almost every stakeholder that we need to engage. As we speak, I am in Rock City with all the majority members of parliament trying to engage further on the e-levy. I just returned from Kumasi and engaging the media and explaining to the population on the need for us all to support the e-levy and how it can bring support to the growth of our economy and its importance to the 2022 budget. So, and of course, FBOs, the faith-based organizations, minority groups in parliament, we will continue to engage. And at the end of the day, we believe that when parliament resumes next week, parliament will be in a position to pass the e-levy so that as a country, we will be able to raise enough resources. And in line with this burden sharing issue, we know that telcos have agreed to also reduce their expenditures or their charges by 0.25%. So that clearly is going to help us in the...
This is intended to give you only 10% or less of what you are expected to raise. And yet, even that there are speculations that what you expect to raise, you may not get as much as you are looking forward. You are looking to about, is this 7 billion to 8 billion? And the speculation is that you may get close to half or less. And yet, this still remains such an integral part, or as it were, the pivot of your fundraising activities, revenue raising activities?
Yes, Samson, it is true. We believe we will raise the 6.9 billion if we start with the yield levy. If by any event we are not able to raise that, I have told you that there's going to be strong commitment control, not just on revenues, but also on expenditure. And our minister the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, has already announced a 20% cut on expenditure in the first quarter. So if we are not able to raise enough revenues, we will still stay within the budget target and we will not overrun the budget.
Okay.
But we are very confident that we will raise it. We know the work we have done and what the basis for the projections that we did. We are even confident that that estimate is very, very conservative. And granted, you know, the volumes of mobile money transactions in Ghana in 2020 was 900 billion. And it was expected to even increase into trillions by the close of 2021. And so we believe that with the kind of investment we have done in that industry or in that sector, in the mobile money sector and other digital platforms, we will believe that we'll be able to hit the target.
Okay.
And
right. Just in a minute, what will you say to those who are saying this minister is tired? He's simply not seeing his way through all of this portfolio of the Ministry of Finance. The president should simply retire him.
I'll be surprised to hear that. Those of us who are close to him and work with him, he works like I don't know which animal is the strongest. Maybe
is the result that is being talked about.
No, but his results has been splendid. Which minister has consistently hit his target since he became finance minister? Revenue targets are met, growth targets are met, expenditure targets are met. So what is the basis of the assessment that they are talking about? COVID was not his fault. This was that finance minister that grew this country by consistently 7% consistent growth in 3 years until COVID hit. And even in spite of COVID, he's growing at the targets for every year. He's hitting his target. So it says that's why I'm saying it's very exaggerated for anybody to be thinking that the economy is not heading well. And we are very confident at the innovations that he's able to bring and his discipline in maintaining how targets within the year are met. And we should continue to support him. I would tell those people to rather tell the president to continue to have confidence in the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta and his ability to deliver the economic agenda for Ghana.
Okay, so your last comment I'll take from you is to this particular comment. Listen to it and let's get your response.
Okay.
In a sense that if you look at an investor out there, the investor understands the rating agency more than the government. Already when it comes to trust issues on data, it's a very huge one in Africa. The understanding is that sometimes we don't really churn out very good data. So the best we could have done is not to come out to say that the economy is doing well and that maybe the report that is coming from Fitch might not necessarily be a report that reflects what is happening on the grounds here. We don't have to respond to indicate that, we are doing better and therefore the ratings that is coming out is not, a reflection of what is happening in our economy. When you do that, it gives the signal that possibly there's a conflict in data, and that in itself is an uncertainty, because if it is putting out this and then you are also saying that you are doing well, in the investment brings what we call uncertainty, which in itself is a risk on its own. So the investor does not really know the exact happenings on the ground, and no investor will put his money in an environment where there is a conflicting, information coming out from that environment.
Yes, John, what do you say to Professor Lord Mensah?
I'll say two things to Professor Lord. First of all, the Bloomberg publication that came, and subsequent to the Ministry of Finance response, Bloomberg has come out to retract that the basis of the analysis, especially with respect to our debt percentages, they got it wrong. Okay, so we are not putting out wrong data. They could also get it wrong, and they are agreeing with us that they got it wrong. Secondly, throughout last week, the Ministry of Finance has been on roadshow, engaging all our investors, led by the Honorable Charles Edubuahi, and explaining to them the real picture of the Ghana situation and helping to restore their confidence that there is no cause for alarm. Yes, there may be uncertainty with respect to e-levy at the moment because of the impasse in Parliament, but that is not so grave to change what we have done, and that even should that happen, we have alternative plans, including cutting down expenditures to be able to stay within targets of the budget. And so I would tell Professor Lord to be rest assured that we have competent managers of the economy, and that we are not churning out any different data. They got it wrong based on their own publications, which we responded. We have given out the facts of how this economy is growing, and that economy emerging from COVID growing over 5% cannot be said to be a bad economy as is being projected out there. And we are engaging them in brochures to restore their confidence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. John Kumah is Deputy Finance Minister. I would end with Mr. Seth Tekpe, former Finance Minister, who is here in the studio with us. So you've heard him. They have a certain clear path that they are taking. And despite everything else, they are very sure that there will not be any external imbalances, and there will not be things that will result in what we hear will shock the economy into collapse.
I think we are being complacent, to put it in a milder way. First of all, we couldn't go to the market last year. Why were we not able to go to the market? Why did we do a zero coupon and had to give up $150 million US in exchange?
Why?
It's because the market is tough, right? It's because that's what we could get. And we had to pay over 30% simple interest to get that money.
Meaning?
Right?
What are the implications
Meaning
of that?
meaning you needed the money, right? And remember when 2015, we did 10.2%, right? You realize the comments and things that were, passed, the worst interest rate. Yes, we needed that money to come and refinance so that we can put the sinking fund in place, right? And we spoke about market sentiments back then. So it's every Minister of Finance, that's yes.
No, see, from where I sit, I'm hearing almost the same things that when you were in charge, the MPP was saying in opposition. I'm hearing a turn. Nothing seemed to have changed. It's just the positions
a lot has changed.
of the individuals that have changed.
No, let's look at the numbers.
No, the debt burden is different. We know that. The historic debt that they have accrued, we know about that. But I'm talking about as in the rating agencies and the job they have done, how you see the NPP in opposition use that to crucify you, and how now they don't want anybody to believe them.
No, we are not using it to crush me. Remember something. You remember I have been in the studio with your good self expressing concern about some of the accounting methodologies and the rest, which the IMF revised. IMF revised our 2018-2019 deficits. The Minister for Finance is still quoting his numbers. And the markets are taking, what the IMF is saying, 7%. He said your deficit is 7%, your deficit was 7.2. They revised it in Article 4. We are quoting the same numbers. Who is the market believing? Yeah, so you can be here and say you are doing well. At least past governments, once we, and mind you, there's background discussion. There's background discussion with the IMF. There's background discussion.
You used to
with
tell
Fitch.
us. You used to tell us to be careful how we discuss these issues because it affects investor confidence. The minister is also telling us the same thing today.
Well, to the point, yes, to the extent that some of it you may not see. I did.
They never took that seriously.
Well, no, look, I don't want to comment on that, but the fact is that I did monthly briefing for the financial press in particular, anytime I made that, to explain, right? But they can, just like Fitch, even the domestic market, they have a way of interpreting what, the way they see things. But let me just comment on why I said that I said we were not able to go to the market, right? What is our preparation? Normally we go to the market around about March, April. What's our preparation, to go to the market? That is what we want to know. Yes, he just said that Honorable Dubois is talking to the investors, and the rest. Now, e-levy is already in the budget. And the budget which the rating agencies, the fund and everybody, is concerned about and giving us that deficit is already in the budget, right? So it's not this magical thing. And something, let me say that the basis on which, we are talking about the e-levy, right? Just briefly. We had services taxes back, when we did the VAT, right? They were limited. We don't have time. I would have quoted, the sections for you. They were limited. They were expanded even before the VAT was reintroduced again. And then all were put under VAT. The question is, what are we taxing? Are we so desperate that we are not taxing investments? That is the question. And why am I saying that? In all countries, what you tax is a fee, right? Something. As I tweeted, if I put my money under my pillow, you put your money in a bank, and especially our young friends put it in their wallet on the phone. Isn't it savings? Is it not the same money? Yeah. Right? Now, what you have to tax, yes, I choose my pillow. Thieves can come and steal.
I've listened to questions in this direction to the minister when he did the meeting and all his other supporters. It's obvious they don't answer that question
yes,
directly.
But I need to
which is to be an admission that they know that they are taxing your wallet practically. They are taxing your capital, and not your earning and so on. But they say we should burden share. No. We should try and help. We are in a situation. The minister gave an example of some other countries where they are taxing their citizens so much. And we go there, we see that it is beautiful, we like it, and yet we don't want to do the same.
Something, we have had 3 oil fields. You see, let's get a background, very well. We have had 3 oil fields. He spoke about we not going to the market in 2017. Of course, oil prices had recovered. Crude oil production had gone up at the time from about 70,000 barrels, to nearly 180. Today we are close to 200,000 barrels. He had the ESLA sinking fund was there. 200 million was used to pay off the rest of the first sovereign bond. So the conditions in 2017 were quite conducive. As I said, right? It's like when we had the first oil field, we started putting money aside for sinking fund, contingency fund, and the rest. We started turning and strengthening the domestic market and the DUFO and all that.
Okay.
Yes. So there is every, for that. So, but the point I'm making, yes, okay. If they refuse to answer it, then that is the point. Are we so desperate? Then tell us, are we so desperate that we have started taxing investments by a government that is entrepreneurial? That is the point that we are making.
Interesting.
Instead of the fee. Let me make two more points. You see, we fell into this mistake of comparing ourselves to the UK, to the US, and the rest. They are borrowing at 2%. President Biden, if he gets the act, does not have a problem. His market is big. He can go and borrow at 2%. You cannot even go and borrow at 10% as we speak. There's no basis for that comparison. They say monkeys move, by sizes. Yes.
Okay.
Right. And then my other point is that remember that let me re-emphasize. We are blaming so much on COVID, but I am saying what the market is saying is that you got 5 billion, something multiplied by 6, 30 billion. How much is GRA bringing? GRA is bringing in what? Barely less than 60 billion. So you got half of what GRA will give you in a whole year to support COVID. So what the market is expecting that after all that money that you got, and Ghana got one of the highest, you should have been able to stabilize and not present a budget like this. So was there a problem other than COVID, as some of us have been saying? And why is it lingering? That is the question.
Okay.
Are we overspending?
Thank you.
I think that is the issue which is facing us as a nation, and we shouldn't be complacent.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Setekpe, former finance minister. The Minister of Finance says that we need to do this because they intend to use the money to create jobs and grow the private sector to employ more of our youth, accelerate digitalization agenda to bring more convenience to Ghanaians, enhance the security of digital platforms, aggressively expand our road infrastructure agenda, reduce our dependence on debt, and reduce the crowding out of the private sector to improve access to credit. Well, e-levy somehow truly appears to be the one thing to fix everything, which the government disagrees. Well, he ends by charging us on Genesis chapter 11, verse 5 and 6. Quote, "But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them." We take a break here. When we return, we will go into the classroom. It's trimester, not a semester program. How did government fail so abysmally to gauge this before the rush into announcing this policy? We'll be right back.